Hello everyone and welcome to F124. In today's video I'm going to be teaching you how to master the new kinematic suspension system, aka the new physics model within the F124 game. Ultimately, I want to make this video so you can be as confident, as precise and as fast as possible when you do load up F124 for the first time and able to jump into whatever game mode or whatever you're doing on this game to be as confident and enjoy the game to its maximum possibilities. So with that being said, I'm going to break this video down into very simple techniques on how you can master the new handling model as well, and we'll briefly touch upon the new tyre model later on in this video as well. So jumping into the first topic, and that's going to be the weight transfer of the car and how it's going to be influencing your grip of the car more than ever within the F1 game series in general. So what is weight transfer? Weight transfer is the ability to move around the static weight of the car into a movement and how you can influence your grip because of that. For example, if you have 1000 kg of a car in a static environment when it's standing still, when ultimately you move a car, whenever you're driving, can be on the way to the shops, going to school, going to work, or driving an F1 car in real life, or now driving the F1 car in the video game, ultimately weight is, let's say, virtually moving around the car. For example, if I have a 1000 kg of a car, ultimately when I brake, like I'm doing right now, maybe 600 kg goes to the front and only 400 kg is on the rear. When I turn left, for example, as I do here, and I'll show you in the replay camera of the car, ultimately, let's say again, in this example of having 1000 kg of a car, when I turn left, maybe 700 of that weight goes to the outside, as you can see by the suspension being compressed. If we look to the outside of the car, the suspension is really compressed right now, whereas when I reverse it, ultimately the suspension is static and the weight is distributed more or less evenly between all the tyres. But when I turn to the left, let's say 700 of that kg goes to the outside of the car and only has 300 on the inside. The reason for this is when you turn left, the forces push right, and ultimately that is what's causing the gravity and effectively then the weight transfer to be pushing the right hand side of the car down into the ground, and that is what's going to be generating you the grip to go around the corner as fast as possible. The key within the F124 game, quite simply, is to generate as much load and weight transfer to the outside tyres of the car while going around a corner, and that will be generating you more and more grip. To do this, you have to be extremely smooth on your steering wheel inputs, because although the weight of the car wants to be transferred as much as possible to the outside of the car, ultimately tyres only have a certain amount of grip. So to do an example here, if I turn sharply and overload the tyres on the front axle of the car, you're going to see what it looks like if I scrub and lose grip from the tyre. The tyre will not have enough grip to deal with the load that you're putting to the outside of the car. So once again, going into the third person camera of the game, you can see turning the wheel very viciously, and you can see really exaggerated right here. You can see that the car is extremely loaded to the outside tyre and is basically fully compressed on the suspension. You would think this is very good and this would generate a lot of grip, but simply because I have turned too aggressively and too sharply on the front axle of the car, the front tyres do not have the grip to deal with the weight transfer and thus new grip found to go around the corner efficiently, thus causing understeer, and you see that this car is starting to slide a lot past the apex, quite simply because although the weight transfer wants to be generating the grip, the tyres have been oversaturated, overworked and overloaded, and thus they cannot produce the grip necessary to go around the corner. So now if I reverse it and go down into a smooth way, and I drive my car through the corner in a very smooth and elegant way, you're going to see a completely different characteristic from the tyre, and they're going to be able to deal with the weight transfer to go around the corner as fast as possible. Now going into the replay camera of the car, you can see while going to the outside and basically doing the same static environment of just driving through the corner, you can see the weight is being put to the outside of the tyre, outside of the car I should say, and the tyres can deal with it because I was smooth with my inputs and allowing the car to be predictable and thus generate the grip necessary to go around the corner. So in summary, key note: be smooth with your driving inputs, as this will allow your tyres to generate the grip necessary to deal with the weight transfer load of the new game. This is extremely prominent also in the high-speed sections here in the F1 game. You can see going around the corners right now, and we're going to show this in the third person replay camera again, and you're going to see how just extreme the weight transfer is from corner to corner. So going again in third person camera, you're going to see while I turn left, the car loads to the right, and you're going to see it being compressed down, and when I turn right, the car loads to the left, and you can really see how much the extreme load is as we're turning left and right. Really exaggerate on these final two apexes here. You can see that the car is extremely loaded and ultimately going through the right hand side over to the left corner now, and then you can see in these fractional details of milliseconds how the weight transfer goes from the left hand side of the car and quickly shifts over to the right hand side of the car extremely fast. And you can see it's very aggressive if I show it in this example here. The front left is fully loaded right now going through the apex, and within a few milliseconds as I start to turn left, ultimately the car is now fully loaded, and I'm shifting that weight balance to generate the grip to go through the left hand side and the left hand corner. Now let's show you a different example. So if I'm too aggressive on my steering wheel inputs during those final two apexes of this sequence here in Jeddah, you're going to see that I do the first apex normally, then I try to be too aggressive with my left hand inputs, and again you can see it overloads the front tire, causing scrubbing and ultimately a loss of grip and a loss of ability to go through the apex as fast as possible. You can see, although with my aggressive input I was able to get the car loaded, I simply was not able to get the grip out the front tire because I overloaded it. I worked it too quickly and ultimately was not predictable. This is something called preloading. We call it in racing, or at least I call it anyway, and I think it's quite a familiar term, but of course everyone has their own unique terms within racing, but I would call it preloading the tire. And basically preloading is giving a warning to the car, quite simply what you're going to be doing next, and this allows for the car and the tire to be ready for that input. You'll see this done very subtly by the top drivers in Formula 1 and driving in general around the world, that they do never a sharp input. They don't throw the car at the corner, at least especially in the dry conditions. In the rain sometimes it's acceptable, especially in a low downforce car, but in the dry, in a Formula 1 car, you'll see that they do preloading to basically compress the suspension, and that allows everything to be predictable. The next topic I'm going to be talking about is going to be the braking bias, and then after we've done the braking bias, I'm going to move over to the tyre wear and the tyre model of the game as well. So really it seems like the best thing within the F1 game right now is to be running low braking bias. This is quite simply because the weight transfer while turning into the corner can actually lift the inside tyre off the ground. So if you're running a frontward braking bias, it can become quite easy to lock the front left. For example, going through this apex, and again, using replay mode quite a lot in this video, it is a very helpful tool. You can see into turn 1, we didn't lock up the front left, and it was able to hip, stop, and jump over the curbing. But if we put the braking bias more towards the front, really, let's say 50, 55, 56 will go, it'll become quite easy to lock up that front left and ultimately lose the stopping power of the car. This, more or less, is 90-95% correlated to the simple fact that the front tyres are losing contact with the ground, quite simply because the suspension at the moment is really soft within the game. So it's really easy to lose contact with the ground because the suspension is so soft that when it's compressing over the right-hand side tyres and the right-hand side of the car, the left-hand side of the car is being quite literally lifted from the floor, and this is what's causing the vulnerability to lockups, and this is why running quite a rearward brake bias is actually more helpful at the moment within the game, as it seems to be a bit more of the meta, like I say. So as you can see now, I've put the brightness really high on the game, just quite simply because it's dark here in the Saudi Arabian circuit of Jeddah, and ultimately you can see that that front right tyre is slightly off the ground, and that is what's causing the lockup. So if you're looking at the front tyre on the F1 game at the moment, definitely check your brake bias, as ultimately going really rearward on the brake bias could be helping quite a lot. So yeah, that is the summary of the brake bias at the moment. You definitely want to work yourself more to the rear. Around 52 seems to be about right for me at the moment within the F1 24 game, so hopefully this is able to help you get ready for the start of the game and to be comfortable and to understand what's happening straight away as well. So now we have moved over to GP mode within the F1 part of the game, and ultimately I'm going to be breaking down and telling you about the tyre wear within this updated physics model as well. So basically a lot of the tyre wear now is going to be human ability to influence it, and ultimately to make your tyre wear better or worse relative to your rivals as well. So bringing up the tyre wear page, you can see it's on 5%, and if I drive just, let's say, quite normally, and just going through the corner very smoothly and not putting any exaggerated steering wheel movements, you can see the tyre wear isn't really going up. But if I put a lot of exaggerated movements into the car, you can see that the tyre wear is going up extremely quickly, including using the spin as an example there. And when I start doing burnouts, as it has always been the previous version of the game, that you do end up getting quite a lot of tyre wear from doing burnouts and stuff like this, but it has definitely been increased on this year's game. And ultimately, if you're a driver who is smooth while loading up the tyre, and ultimately smooth to be with your inputs, it will make a huge difference for you as well. So you can see right now, just going through the corner, being smooth is really a critical thing. And now I'm going to do a quick test for you at home, so you can see the difference between being smooth or being harsh with your inputs, and how it can be affecting the grip and the tyre as well. So what I'm going to do is bolt on a new set of softs. I'm not going to change anything on the setup. I'm just going to leave the setup completely stock how it is. Preset top speed. I'm going to go out to track. I'm going to move the brake bias actually to the rear with 52% as I recommended. Oh, hello. There's a car there. We're going to give ourselves clean air, of course. We're not going to use DRS. We're not going to use anything extra. All we're going to do is put the brake bias down to 52%. Ultimately find some clear air on the track. I'm going to have my tyre wear page loaded up the whole time. And ultimately you're going to be able to see the difference in tyre wear over a lap here in the Saudi Arabian Jeddah circuit, about how a smooth driving input and how an aggressive driving input can be influencing the ability to generate grip and tyre wear as well. So that being said, let's jump into the lap and ultimately see what we can do. Turn 1 was quite nice. You can see now, already halfway through the lap, that front right is on 9%, and that is very extreme, of course, a very heavily loaded tyre here on this track. You can see we're taking it pretty easy as well. We're not really pushing and scrubbing that front tyre across the road, of course not opening DRS as we previously explained. Coming up into the final corner of the lap, into the left-hander. Nice and smooth. So our most worn tyre was 10% on the front right hand side, with 7% on the front left and 8% on the rears as well. So that being said, remember those numbers, and ultimately let's see what we can do on the following lap by being more aggressive. So now you can see with the same situation, running the same brake bias of 52 with the same fuel and a new set of tyres to go with that as well, coming up to the final corner of the lap. And we're going to be super aggressive on this lap, only just pushing 100% and doing nothing to manage the tyres during the duration of the lap. So let's bring up the tyre page and ultimately let's see what happens. Ooh, a bit deep. You can see now, halfway through the lap, we are 0.2 up, but equally, we've also got 2% more tyre wear on that front right-hand side of the car already. Now 0.4 up, but 12% on the front right. Really, I think it was 2 more than we previously had already. Oh, a bit of a wiggle. Got away with it though. But you can still see 13% on the front right-hand tyre, and ultimately 3% more than we previously had. And equally, the front left was 2% more, and the rear right was 1% more. The rear left was the same. So ultimately, you can see the effect of pushing the front tyre really hard, really aggressively during the corners of this track, and this game as well can have a drastic effect on tyre wear. So of course, for qualifying, you're going to have to push flat out. You're going to have to not worry about the tyre really. But over a racing situation, even driving 0.2 slower per lap can be saving you upwards of 1-2% tyres per lap as well, what can make the difference ultimately at the end of the race. So this is where time management is going to be completely critical, completely key within the F1 24 game. So this has been a very brief video because of course I'm time restricted. I can't make a super long video about these subjects. But of course, as the game starts to become released and ultimately as we get more and more time and more, let's say, understanding of the game, I'll do follow-up tutorials and really do my best to make this game as enjoyable for you at home, to bring all my knowledge to you on these videos so you can be as fast and as competitive as you possibly can be as well. With that being said, enjoy the F1 24 content and I will see you for the next video. Glad to see you, ciao ciao, bye bye.